Welcome to Rebound Rewind's Power Tower. Today we're ranking every NBA team's active big three from worst to best. Let's find out who's on the first floor and who's all the way at the top. Now, not every NBA team has by definition a big three, so this is more technically a trio ranking. However, with so much star power in today's league, many teams actually do have a legitimate by definition big three. I do want to point out that this is not a power ranking list, so there are some great teams without a top-heavy big three that are going to be ranked lower than, say, a team with little to no depth but a lot of star power up front. And with the NBA season right around the corner, it feels great to say that basketball is back. An awesome way to tip off the season is with DraftKings Sportbook, today's video sponsor and an official sports betting partner of the NBA. New DraftKings customers can make any $5 NBA bet and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. Plus, with same-game parlays, you can combine multiple bets from the same game to give yourself a shot at even bigger winnings all season long. For those in a state where sports betting is not yet available, don't forget about DraftKings Daily Fantasy, where they have been innovating even more ways to win some cash this basketball season. DraftKings has been around for a while, so you know your funds are safe and can be withdrawn whenever, wherever you want. Download the DraftKings Sportbook app now and use promo code ReboundRewind. Make any $5 bet this week and get $200 in free bets if your team wins. This is only available at DraftKings Sportbooks with promo code ReboundRewind. DraftKings has so many ways to make watching sports more fun. So what are you waiting for? Click that top link in the description below or pinned comment and use code ReboundRewind. Thanks to DraftKings for sponsoring this video. In 30th place, we have the San Antonio Spurs with the trio of Doug McDermott, Jakob Poeltl, and Devin Vassell. Individually, these are all nice pieces, but if the best player on your team is more famous for an NBA guessing game rather than his actual game, then maybe Coach Pop is right that this team is not championship material. However, to be fair, Poeltl is a pretty impressive player and kind of underrated. I think also losing DeJounte Murray also affects this trio because now they have to adapt without him on the court. In 29th place, we have the Orlando Magic with Paolo Banchero, Jalen Suggs, and Markelle Fultz. Maybe by the end of the season, if Paolo really shows how NBA ready he is, and if Markelle Fultz can finally play a full season, then possibly I can rank this trio higher. Jalen Suggs came off of a really impressive season last season, and hopefully he continues to improve as well. Until then, this team has to be ranked lower until proven otherwise. In 28th place, we have the Utah Jazz with Mike Conley, Colin Sexton, and Jordan Clarkson. Individually, all three of these players are pretty great. As a trio, for the most part, they play very similar positions and likely aren't going to be on the court at the same time as each other, considering they're all technically combo guards. The Jazz are probably closer to chasing that number one pick rather than the number one seed this season. In 27th place, we have the Indiana Pacers with Buddy Hield, Tyrese Haliburton, and Benedict Mathurin. With all the trade rumors, it's hard to tell how long Buddy Hield is actually going to be a Pacer, and Mathurin, as of this upload, hasn't played any regular season games just yet. By the end of the season, this team could be ranked very differently. I do have a lot of positive opinions on Mathurin's game. I think he's got some potential. Ranked at 26th place, we have the Sacramento Kings with De'Aaron Fox, Domantas Sabonis, and Kevin Huerter. A few seasons ago, Sabonis was a back-to-back All-Star. De'Aaron Fox I consider to be at an All-Star level, even if he hasn't been invited to the weekend as of yet, and Huerter is a pretty nice starters piece. The issue is that as a trio, it's hard to say if this trio can lead the Kings to a postseason, or if this is going to be yet another year added to the 16-year playoff drought. Coming in 25th place is the Detroit Pistons with Cade Cunningham, Sadiq Bey, and Jaden Ivey. In a few seasons, I think the Pistons are actually going to be a serious title contender and are a rare dark horse for the postseason this year if they can sneak into that play-in tournament and hold their ground once they get there. While Cade didn't win Rookie of the Year, he was certainly talented enough to be given that trophy. And Jaden Ivey is like a mini Ja Morant. Even though we haven't seen him play in the regular season yet, he's been showing it off in Summer League. Plus, we can't forget about Sadiq Bey, who's entering his third season, coming off of a 16-point-per-game sophomore season. In 24th place is the Rockets with Jalen Green, Kevin Porter Jr., and Alperen Şengün. The craziest thing about this trio is that I'm not including Jabari Smith Jr. or Eric Gordon. I do think that by the end of the season, we could swap Şengün for Jabari Smith, but then again, Şengün himself is really looking like he's about to break out. As of this upload, I'm picking this specific trio because we actually know how they operate as a trio. We have some sample size from the previous season, and I think if the backcourt can improve their defense and gain more NBA experience, the Rockets should be rocketing in the near future if they continue to improve. In 23rd place is the New York Knicks with RJ Barrett, Julius Randle, and Jalen Brunson. I really want to somehow add Derrick Rose into this trio, but I think he might have another season off the bench. While Julius may have underperformed last season, I think there's still an all-star caliber player inside of him. He's just got to reach out and bring it out. RJ Barrett isn't even in his prime yet, and I think he's very close to being that all-star caliber and even maybe franchise player for the Knicks. And we can't forget about Jalen Brunson, who as of this upload hasn't played any regular season minutes as a Knick, but if the preseason is any indicator of what is to come, he looks like he fits pretty well with this team. In 22nd place is the Oklahoma City Thunder with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Josh Giddey, and Darius Bazley. Had Chetna had a season-ending injury this season, I probably would have included him in this trio, but Darius and Josh might still have the edge considering they have been on the roster for far longer. I do have the Thunder as a dark horse for getting into the play-in tournament and fighting for the postseason, but then again, everyone is going to be tanking for Victor Wembanyama, so who knows what they're looking for this season. Josh and Darius might be 1 or 2 seasons away from really being serious NBA threats, but I think Shai is an all-star caliber player as of this upload, even though he's never officially been invited to All-Star Weekend just yet, not including the other challenges but the main event. In 21st place is the Washington Wizards with Bradley Beal, Kyle Kuzma, and Kristaps Porzingis. On paper, this trio has 2 All-Stars, but it has been quite some time since Kristaps laced up in an All-Star jersey. Beal has made an All-Star just 2 seasons ago. Kyle Kuzma is also an underrated player. His first season in Washington was really promising as he came off of a 17-point per game season. If this trio can prove they can make the postseason together, I would easily rank them higher. Ranking in 20th place is the Hornets with LaMelo Ball, Terry Rozier, and Gordon Hayward. On paper, this trio has 2 All-Stars, but if we're being critically honest, Gordon has not been playing at his All-Star level in quite some time, and that's not really his fault. Just the fact that he was able to make an NBA comeback and play at this level after his season-ending injury on opening night in 2017 is an achievement in of itself simply for him as an athlete and a man. This trio is still pretty solid, but unless LaMelo can take this team deep into the postseason next season and step up as the true franchise player, I think we're maybe 1 or 2 seasons away from LaMelo really taking that next step, since of course this is just his 3rd NBA season. Coming in 19th place, we have the Portland Trailblazers with Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, and Jusuf Nurkic. Right off the bat, you might be saying that I'm ranking this trio way too low. Not that long ago, the duo of Damian and Nurkic alone made a top 3 team in the West, and Anthony is still greatly improving, but there are a few factors that come into this ranking. Firstly, the insane competition moving forward is no-brainer. Secondly, post-2020, Nurkic really hasn't been playing 100% like he was during his 2019 season, especially his rim protection. He used to average 2 blocks a game, now he's averaging a half block per game. Damian, I will give the benefit of the doubt and say that he's 100% ready to go, but even if that was the case, as of this moment, this trio has a lot more questions than answers, and despite all that, I think Anthony's future is still really bright, and he will be the main force behind the re-emergence of this franchise. In 18th place, we have the New Orleans Pelicans with Zion Williamson, Brandon Ingram, and CJ McCollum. By the end of the season, this trio has the potential to easily crack the top 10. For now, it's hard to say how exactly CJ will mesh with Zion for a full season, but the CJ and Brandon duo we saw last season was a good implication of where this trio could go. Only time will tell for now. I do think Zion is just about ready to make his mark on the NBA and show why he went number 1 overall. He is definitely in much better shape as seen in NBA Media Day. In 17th place, we have the Minnesota Timberwolves with Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert. On paper, you can make an argument to have this trio ranked much higher than 17th place, especially since this is certainly an above average trio. There's no reason why to rank them below average, but then again, there are a few things to consider. One, this will be Cat's first full season as a power forward. On paper, he has been playing center, so to be critical, this is new territory for him, as Rudy will be the full-time man in the middle. Second, Ant-Man will have a lot more defensive responsibility now that Patrick Beverley is on the Lakers. And third, this is Ant-Man's 3rd season. We might just be 1 or 2 seasons away from him really establishing his skill set. Regardless, this is a really great trio and should be ranked higher by the end of the season if everything falls into place. In 16th place, we have the Dallas Dallas Mavericks with Luka Doncic, Dorian Finney-Smith, and Tim Hardaway Jr. It's no question that Luka is easily a top 5 player in the league today, and with that kind of talent, you only need one top 5 player to really make some noise as an NBA team. Just ask the 2007 Cavaliers or even the 2011 Dallas Mavericks. With that being said, beyond Luka, it's really hard to form a trio. You can easily swap out Dodo or Hardaway for many other Mavs players. If this was a true power ranking video, I would rank the Mavs higher. As a trio, Luka is doing a tough job carrying the trio all the way to 16th place in of itself, which is pretty good. In 15th place is the Atlanta Hawks with Trae Young, DeJounte Murray, and Clint Capella. Not too long ago, Trae led the Hawks all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals in just his 3rd NBA season. Now he's entering his 5th season at age 24, and he's got more NBA talent on his roster than he's ever had before. So why is this trio ranked at the dead center as if they're an average trio? Firstly, there's so much competition moving forward. Secondly, even though things look great so far with the small sample size we've seen in preseason and during the summer, the Murray-Young duo doesn't have any official regular season time to see where they can actually take things when push comes to shove. I'm not saying they can't handle that pressure, I'm just saying let's wait and see. And third, I think the Hawks still need a tad bit more experience before they can be ranked higher as a whole. This is overall a very young team with a very bright future. In 14th place, we have the Cleveland Cavaliers with Darius Garland, Jared Allen, and Donovan Mitchell. The Cavaliers have 3 All-Stars and none of them are named Evan Mobley. Let me run that by you one more time. This team has 3 All-Stars and none of them are named Evan Mobley. At least not yet, I'm just trying to show you how great this team's future is. This team is easily a Big 4 in the making. Much like the Hawks, I would really like to rank this team higher in the future, but as of this upload, I have a few questions. Firstly, where is the defense on the backcourt? Yes, statistically, both Donovan and Darius are average defenders, but they're also 6'1" combo guards. Now, one or the other will be forced at the 2 spot at all times, which will be a defensive challenge. Secondly, while we have some small preseason sample size, we don't have any official regular season time to see how well Mitchell meshes with this team, but the future is very bright in Cleveland. In 13th place, we have the Toronto Raptors with Pascal Siakam, Fred VanVleet, and OG Anunoby. Now, if this were a full team power ranking, I actually would rank the Raptors higher, and the hardest part about this trio is deciding which players to actually put in the Big 3. The Raptors have one of the most balanced starting 5s in the NBA today. You could easily insert Scottie Barnes or Gary Trent Jr. to swap out OG or Fred. Literally every position on this starting 5 has all-star potential. With that in mind, as for top-heavy Big 3 talent, while Pascal is an all-NBA player, I think the other starters are all-star caliber, but not necessarily franchise level, at least not yet, because OG does have a bright future as well as Scottie Barnes. In 12th place, we have the Chicago Bulls with DeMar DeRozan, Zach LaVine, and Nikola Vucevic. If Lonzo was healthy, you can make an argument to put him in this Big 3, but even without him, you still have 3 all-star caliber players here, and this trio I would consider a true Big 3. DeMar for a stretch of last season was really making a case to be MVP of the league, and I think there is still potential for him to tap back into that groove and really make some noise entering next season. If this team can take and make more threes, they would be much harder to defend. The Bulls were dead last in 3-point attempts last season, yet 5th overall in 3-point efficiency, so it's not like they can't make them. In 11th place, I am choosing the Los Angeles Lakers with LeBron James, Anthony Davis, and Russell Westbrook. If we're ranking this trio in a vacuum with simply on-paper talent, then you could say I'm ranking this trio too low. If we're ranking this trio based off of a power ranking sense on what the team can do, then I'm ranking the Lakers a bit too high to say they're nearly a top 10 team. But overall, factoring the reality of this trio with the supreme talent of LeBron James, I think 11th place is a pretty fair spot for this trio. Anthony's health was part of the reason why this team did poorly last season. If he can return to his 2020 form, the Lakers should actually be worth watching out for, but only time will tell. And now we enter the top 10. In 10th place is the Miami Heat with Jimmy Butler, Bam Adebayo, and Kyle Lowry. Jimmy is one of the best two-way players in basketball, Bam is one of the best defenders in the game, and while Kyle is getting older, he still has a really high basketball IQ and three-point shooting ability. It is possible that Victor Oladipo can surprise the league and return to his all-star form. If that happens, I think he surpasses Kyle from this trio and even lifts this trio's ranking, but for now it's a bit too early to tell. In 9th place, we have the Brooklyn Nets with Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, and Ben Simmons. Now, I know the Nets have been pretty disappointing in the past few seasons, and it is possible we can be in for some more confusion and drama, but I am optimistic that we finally get a full season of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant to mesh together. Ben Simmons also has a new opportunity to play for a team that won't ask him to be a backcourt shooter, but a frontcourt defender, which he excels at. Now, I will say that if this was a full team power ranking, that you can actually form a pretty good argument to rank the Nets lower, but as a top-heavy Big Three trio ranking, I think the star power of KD and Kyrie alone have a lot to show for as far as duos go, let alone trios. In 8th place, we have the Phoenix Suns with Chris Paul, Devin Booker, and DeAndre Ayton. I personally believe that Devin Booker is one of, if not the best shooting guards in the game today. Chris Paul is still a top 5 point guard in the league today, even with his old age, and DeAndre Ayton is an all-star caliber player, even if he's never technically been invited to the all-star team just yet. Now, Chris is 37, soon to be 38, so this is something to consider, and recently the Suns have been going through quite a bit of drama, and maybe that could have a negative effect on the team, but regardless, I think this team is still one of the best teams in basketball, and this trio is still in great shape to aim for a title this season. In 7th place ranks the Memphis Grizzlies with Ja Morant, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. Now, I know as of this upload, Jaren Jackson Jr. is hurt and likely won't return to at the earliest November, but more likely maybe sometime around January. I am including him in this trio because I am optimistic he will play more games this season than he will miss, and that he will return as an all-defensive level talent as he was in the past. Now, if you don't think that's fair, that's 100% understandable, and we could swap him out for another Grizzly. The Grizzlies would still be ranked pretty high regardless, thanks to the talents of Ja Morant and Desmond Bane. To be critical, I do believe the Grizzlies might be 1 or 2 seasons away from having this trio be top 3 or even top 1 if Ja really takes the league by storm. In 6th place, we have the Denver Nuggets with Nikola Jokic, Jamal Murray, and Aaron Gordon. This trio has a back-to-back MVP, one of the best dunkers in the game today, and a point guard who is an all-star caliber talent in Jamal, even if he's never been selected as one as of yet. Nikola is easily one of the best NBA players in the game. You can make great arguments to say he's the best player on the planet. I would rank this trio higher, but there are some slight defensive issues I have with this trio, and I am being picky as we get closer and closer to that number 1 spot. This is a great trio in the grand scheme of the NBA. With that in mind, statistically speaking, they are all statistically average defenders. Nikola has a defensive rating of 105, Aaron has a defensive rating of 109, and Jamal has a defensive rating of 113. For their positions, this is just average, which is fine, but the competition is getting tougher as we move forward, so I'm going to be more pickier as we go on. In 5th place, we have the Philadelphia 76ers with Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Tobias Harris. Joel Embiid is an MVP caliber player regardless if he has the MVP trophy or not. James Harden, while not in his true prime, is still a legitimate all-star, and Tobias plays at around an all-star level, even if he's never been invited to play as an all-star on All-Star Weekend. Harris has a defensive rating of 108, Harden has a defensive rating of 111, and Joel has an impressive defensive rating of 104. So to compare this to the Nuggets trio, you get slightly better defense with just about even offense all around considering all players. Sure, Nikola is better offensively compared to Joel if we were talking about comparing centers specifically, but with the complete trio including James Harden, I would take his isolation skills and scoring ability over Jamal, which is why I have the 76ers trio ahead of the Nuggets. In 4th place, we have the Boston Celtics with Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, and Marcus Smart. This is one of the best two-way trios in the NBA today, both offensively and defensively. Jason has a defensive rating of 106.9, nice. Jaylen has a defensive rating of 107.9, and Marcus Smart has a defensive rating of 107.1, which is madly impressive for a point guard. I would rank the Celtics higher, but as a 19-year-old, Jason has much growing to do. I'm kidding. This trio would be ranked higher, but trios ranked ahead of them have similar or better defense with statistically even better scoring options. Or, in our case for the next one, the next trio straight up beat this trio. Speaking of which, in 3rd place is the Golden State Warriors. Firstly, on paper, you can technically make an on-paper reason to rank the Celtics higher, but there are a few things that the stat sheet won't tell you. Firstly, the value of Curry's floor spacing, and secondly, there is one stat in favor of the Warriors trio, and that's the win column stat. This trio won 4 rings together and beat the Celtics in the previous finals. Draymond has a defensive rating of 102, Curry has a defensive rating of 107, and Clay has a defensive rating of 113. Now you can even swap out Draymond or Klay for Andrew Wiggins, but this specific trio has plenty of rings to explain why I chose this 3. In second place is the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and John Wall. Now, to be fair, you can make the argument that this team has a lot more questions and answers as of this upload, but we do have some small sample size of the Claw and Paul playing together in previous seasons and some preseason activity with John Wall. Leonard has a defensive rating of 109, George has a defensive rating of 102, and John Wall has a defensive rating of 106. Keep in mind, this isn't a power ranking list. You can rank the whole Warriors team way ahead of the Clippers, but for specific trios, not many teams have this level of elite two-way play on both ends of the court. And sure, you can put John Wall in a huge question mark just for now, but the duo of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George alone should be enough star power to really argue for them to be in the top 5 and top 3. The Warriors are getting older, and while Kawhi and Paul are getting up there in age, they're still pretty close to be considered in their true primes. They can score, they can defend, having elite two-way wings is a recipe for NBA success. And last but not least, in first place, we have the Milwaukee Bucks with Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton, and Drew Holiday. Speaking of two-way elite play, you have the best player on the planet with Giannis, and 2 great two-way players in Drew and Chris. Giannis has a defensive rating of 106, Chris has a defensive rating of 109, and Drew has a defensive rating of 111. But offensively, you have one of the most unguardable players in Giannis, and a sidekick with Chris who complements Giannis' game so well. So here is every NBA team's active trio ranked from worst to best. Let me know what you think of this list and what you want to see in the future. Don't forget to dunk on that like button and subscribe with notifications turned on. I'm Rebound Rewind, and I'll fast forward to you later.